Today's show is brought to you by racingpicks.com. This is a great website, not just for Derby week, but all year long. Picks and analysis, and not in some touty way. There is really good stuff here from the likes of Andrew Champagne and Matt Bernier. Hey, I even did a whole piece about how I'm going to be betting the late pick 5, even with tickets included for Churchill on Friday. You can get it for free. You just have to go to racingpicks.com, click on that little expert picks thing up at the top there, give them your email, and you are good to go. Plus, when you support racingpicks.com, you're supporting this podcast. Anytime you do these little asks for our sponsors, you're helping us continue to bring all this content to you for free, the way we want to keep it. So go to racingpicks.com, give your email, sign up today, and enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Derby Week edition of the In the Money Players podcast. We've got a special show for you today. One other quick programming note before I give you the rundown of what you're about to view and or listen to. You might still have time to get in on this contest we're running over at In the Money Media, where you'll have a chance to win a $250 free win bet on the Kentucky Derby in 3 easy steps. Go to our Twitter and check that out. And then, of course, we've got lots of great info when it comes to this week's racing, not just at Churchill, where we'll have a couple of In the Money regulars going over stakes races on Friday and Saturday, leaning heavily towards Saturday on that one. If you want my Friday analysis, as I mentioned up top, go to racingpicks.com and sign up for the expert picks. All it costs is an email. And then beyond the Churchill races this weekend, we're also going to be talking with Clay Sanders of 10 Strike Racing about the NYRA late pick 5. And also, speaking of In the Money regulars, Drew Coatney talking about the late pick 4 at Woodbine. And it all starts after this message. Listeners, viewers, you have to know about this great offer we have with our partners at twinspires.com and Churchill Downs. It's a free $200 bet on any race, really, but why not make it on this year's Kentucky Derby? Better than any other offers out there by far. This is one worth telling friends and family about so they can take advantage. Best way to get there, inthemoneypodcast.com/twinspires. That takes you to the page. If you're watching here, you can claim this $200 free bet now, twinspires.com, or you can also deal with it through the TwinSpires app. Here it is, folks. This is the segment we like to call the final answers for this year's Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. We're going to be looking at the late pick 4 on Saturday with a deeper dive into the Derby. Then we're going to loop back and talk about some Friday races, specifically those that comprise this very cool two-day, $2 pick 6. And to do it with me, I teased up front, we'd have some In the Money regulars. Below me on the screen there, we have returning to the program, the man we call the People's Champion. He's far from the planet Texas, but he is in the shadow of the Spring Street Deli. He's Jonathon Kinchen. JK, what's up?
PTF, I've been rolling around the backside all morning doing a montage version of Cart Talk, so that should be fun to check out this weekend.
I like it. Sort of a version of what we did at the Breeders' Cup, but with Kentucky Derby and a golf cart.
Very similar. Very similar.
I love it. I love it. And also on my right, or is it left if you're watching? Left, I think, we have from his own eponymous podcast, the fantastic work he does on NBC and for racingpicks.com. He's TV's Matt Bernier. What's up, Matt?
Morning, guys. It's a different view. This is the kitchen. This is sort of the second office that we have. You know, again, you got to, when you have lemons, you got to make lemonade out of it. The office is occupied for the next couple hours. So here I am at the kitchen table. So welcome.
I'll take a double Sanka light and sweet, please. We'll get that rocking and rolling. I don't know how many years we've done it in different versions, but there's always some kind of Derby Oaks show that we've done together. I feel like for a good number of years. I like it. This year it's going to be lean and mean. We're just going to give you the good gas, people, and hopefully we're going to help you make some money on this Kentucky Derby undercard.
The biggest problem, Pete, is that we did this in the morning, so we can't do what we normally do. Well, I guess we could, but I think we all have things we have to do the rest of the day.
I do have this bottle right here, JK, and you're making me awfully tempted to pour some into my Sanka. But sparkling water.
This is coffee. This is coffee. Make that abundantly clear. It's 11 o'clock.
Yeah, well, you know how it is. We're gonna behave. We're gonna behave today. But you're right. Next time around, we Breeders' Cup. We'll get some cocktailing in as we do picks. Let's talk about race number 11 on Saturday. It goes at 4:39. This is the start of a pick 4 connecting these exciting graded stakes. There's a lot of good stuff happening at Churchill. We're going to focus on these 4 for now. Distaff Mile, grade 2, going a mile on the turf. JK, we'll start with you. And I'll ask it real simple. Is anybody beating Newspaper of Record?
No, she's going to win this race, and she's going to win the Breeders' Cup Mile. I just think she's entirely too talented. She's kind of figured herself out a little bit. It's rained at Churchill this week, so although the weather's supposed to be nice come Saturday, there's still going to be a little cut in the ground. So all of you naysayers who believe she only runs on soft ground, you can have that for one more time. But eventually she'll win on firm, and we'll beat you anyway. So she's going to be tough. The only question mark about Newspaper of Record for me this weekend is that Irad Ortiz will not be traveling. Irad has figured her out. Hopefully Irad and Javier can hop on the phone, talk a little bit about what needs to happen with Newspaper, but I think she'll be tough in here.
I tend to agree. I can't be creative. But Matt Bernier, you've been on quite a roll coming up with prices left and right in our various broadcasts. Is this a spot where you're going to try to get creative, or are you with JK and myself? Newspaper of Record has just figured out the game and might prove too good for these.
I would say she's going to have 90% of the weight as far as the pick 4 goes. I don't have a giant interest in trying to beat her if you were so inclined. The only other horse that I was mildly intrigued by was the 7, La Signare. I feel like she's been a little bit compromised, not just in the Jenny Wiley. She took on great horses, but there was no pace signed on that day. And then the run 2 back in the Mint Julep. I think she was the best. If she hadn't had check and steady at one point late in the run, I think she would have won that race rather easily. So she was the only one I was mildly intrigued with using as a deep backup, but it all goes through Newspaper.
And La Signare, maybe not a bad idea for you exacta players out there as well. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page as far as that goes. We can start off this pick 4 pretty close to stone cold. If it goes all wrong, that's okay. We'll play back a pick 3 starting in the Derby City Distaff. 7 furlongs, grade 1 on the Churchill dirt. And, I got to go right back to you, JK, because of the presence of Serengeti Empress in this one. Last time, she stuffed you in a locker. She ran a race that looks very strong looking at sectional times. Are you with her or against her this time around, now that you can root her in with the pressure off of your now lost wager that she wouldn't ever win another grade 1?
Speaking of getting stuffed in a locker, if I don't let my girlfriend in the house, I'm going to get stuffed in a locker. Give me 15 seconds. I'll be right back.
Matt, you go first. We're not going to edit. You go first, Matt.
Honestly, this is the race I'm most looking forward to. I recognize the pace situation needs to be in her favor. I'm going to try to beat Serengeti Empress, and it's not because the talent's not there. It's not because she's not going to get the lead. I just wonder, that race up at Saratoga was so massive. I wonder, did we squeeze the lemon a little bit too dry there for a race like this? Maybe we get a little bit of a regression. If there is enough pace signed on, and I'm not entirely convinced there is, but hopefully somebody goes with it early. I love Sally's Curlin. She, to me, is the definition. Go through her PPs in her entire career. She's a different animal going 1 turn as opposed to 2 turns. She needs pace. That Madison, though, at Keeneland, I actually thought she ran quite well given the dynamics. If Guarana were in this race, I think she would be very clearly the horse to beat. She's shelved for the rest of the year, though. A little bit of pace goes a long way for Sally's Curlin. At the very least, I just want her to hit the board so the connections go to the Breeders' Cup, because I want to bet her in the BCBC. But I like Sally's Curlin a lot. I'm going to be betting her to win, and hopefully she can spice up some exotic plays.
I can see it, Matt, and I don't even have to squint. Definitely a flow move up coming out of that Madison, and you make a great point. I mean, what price is Guarana in here? So with trip issues early, stuck behind a slow pace, getting beaten 4.5 to Guarana, that alone makes you a big threat to hit the board in here. JK, let's head back to you. Who do you think is going to win this Derby City Distaff, and what do you think of your old pal Serengeti Empress?
Well, you're right. It's a nice relief to be able to root for my friend Tom Amos and not have to root him down every time she showed up in a great one, which is a very awkward situation. I do think she's coming back quick, but I also think that Tom wouldn't put her in this spot if he didn't feel like she was going to run her best race. Serengeti Empress obviously doesn't owe him or her owner, Joel Politi, anything, and I think Tom's clearly aware of that. So the fact that she's coming back, I think, is probably a good sign. I'm going to try to beat her here, though. I love a horse in this spot, probably more than any horse the entire weekend. I think Cece is going to be extremely tough from the outside. In fact, after she won the Apple Blossom, I remember talking to Michael McCarthy, and he had kind of mentioned he was concerned about how she was going to handle the deep racetracks out in Santa Anita and Del Mar, obviously being owned by a Hirsch. They were going to run in the Clement Hirsch. And so he was concerned about that racetrack and the racetrack at Santa Anita, and he even kind of called his shot. If those two races don't work out, I look forward to taking her back to the Midwest on a tighter racetrack and cutting her back to 7/8. It's happening now. She's drawn to the outside. She is my favorite, without a doubt, best bet of the entire weekend.
Oh, good stuff, JK. And you made the case, so I don't have to. All I will do to chime in and underline what you're saying is the workout the other day over the Churchill Strip was just one of those, I don't have a clock or report or anything, but just looking down at the times, it feels notable that it was quicker and feels notable that it was second of 94 at the distance. I have a feeling Michael McCarthy, the man with a plan, might just get it done with Cece. I love Matt's idea of a runner to come in underneath in this spot as well with Sally's Curlin. Let's move on to race number 13. It goes at 5:50 Eastern. It's the Grade 1 Turf Classic. Matt, we're going to start this one off with you. Race has a little bit of an open look to it, does it not?
Yeah, to me, this is probably the most open of all the races that we're going to at least touch on here for this sequence. And this is one that maybe I'm going to get a little bit fooled based on class and what the tape I thought looked like compared to what it actually was. I just wonder if maybe Sacred Life has kind of figured this thing out. And I get it. It was against far inferior company off the layoff in the Ocean Port at Monmouth last time out, but the horse kicked like a mule down the lane. And with a group like this, I think they're good horses, but I don't think there's any superstars in here. I don't trust Rocker Emperor at all. I think he's a nice horse. He's super talented, but at a short price, I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. And with the rest of the horses, I think you can, I think Mr. Dumas is interesting enough because he was probably pace compromised in that run coming out of Saratoga where some like it Hot Brown was the winner that day. Factor this, I respect him. He's just in raging form. The horse just keeps going, but he's going to be forwardly placed. He's probably going to take some heat early on. Kind of by default, I landed on Sacred Life. And again, maybe I'm getting a little bit fooled. Maybe the tape looks better than he actually is, but I don't think Chad would run him here if he didn't think he was ready to go. So the 8 Sacred Life for me.
You're stealing my thunder, Matt, so I'll just chime in and say that Sacred Life, I mean, if you believe in the clock and looking at closing sectionals and you believe in the ability of late pace as an indicator of ability, that's one thing that makes Sacred Life look so good. And then just the trip, it feels like we've got, as you ran down there, a proper amount of pace in here to set up a late run from a runner like Sacred Life. In Paco, we trust. JK, are you going to make this a chorus for Sacred Life, or do you have another idea in the Turf Classic?
No, I actually had 4 horses I was planning on using in the multi-race plays, and I didn't even have Sacred Life. I felt like Chad's up here at Saratoga. There's a lot of grass racing at Saratoga. The meet title is on the line for him at Saratoga, and he decided to send Sacred Life down to Monmouth. He could have run that horse in the Bernard Baruch a couple weeks or a week before that. There's a lot of different options up here. And so the fact that he didn't do that, I thought was a little bit interesting. Feels like kind of a second tier to me. I love Some Like It Hot Brown. I've always liked that horse. He's run well on that sand-based turf course at Churchill Downs. He ran well up here in the Bernard Baruch. And I just like the fact that he's tactical. I like the fact that Mike Maker is having a phenomenal summer. And I just think that at that 1 1/8 distance, while there's a lot of closers in here, feels like Some Like It Hot Brown could get a little bit loose out on the front end, get a little brave. I think he makes the most sense to me in here, but I'll have to take another look at Sacred Life. You guys are making me nervous.
I'll just make one quick point of what I would say to you off air about Sacred Life. What you're saying makes perfect sense, but remembering how long that layoff was and other horses in the barn, I feel like at the time that was a logical spot to send him. And I feel like as well as he ran in there, without the benefit of particular setup, by the way, I feel like the light bulb has gone off for the horse potentially, and also Chad's evaluation of him. Now they're going to get this Grade 1. That's how I see it anyway. But let's move on to the main event of this podcast, of the weekend, and for many of the racing year. No offense to our friends at the Breeders' Cup. Let's talk about this year's running of the Kentucky Derby. We've talked about it a bunch already, but now it's time to give final answers. Matt Bernier, who's your pick in the 2020 Run for the Roses?
Leading into this race, you go through all the sort of different ways that you can lay it out, and I had no interest in trying to beat Tiz the Law. And as we get closer and closer to race day, I'm more and more convinced he's not going to win. He's going to win for fun. There's no one else in this race that does anything for me. I respect Honor AP. Maybe he's ready to take that big step forward, but I guess I just come to that kind of conclusion that Tiz the Law needs to regress and somebody else needs to jump up in a big way. One of those is certainly possible. I think both of them are possible, but I don't think it's likely that both happen. I think Tiz the Law is way the horse to beat, and you can even make a case right now that he should be the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic in a few weeks. I just have zero interest in beating him, and frankly, I'll be surprised if he doesn't win.
We'll come back to you, Matt, for a thought about how you might wager on this race, but we'll throw it next to JK, who I have a feeling might not have much to say after what you said, because that sounds similar to the vibes I've been getting from him in previous shows. How likely a winner is Tiz the Law, JK?
Very likely. I think it's a foregone conclusion, as a matter of fact. I think he could, I don't mean to wish him any bad luck, he could stumble at the start and still win. He's just better than these horses, and I've been convinced that he was going to win this race since about the 16th pole of the Travers, when Manny flipped the stick over and had enough. The horse is just too talented for this group. He's accomplished the fastest speed figure going the 1.25 miles, while the rest of them, it's still a huge question mark. Like Matt mentioned, sure, maybe Honor AP's been crying out for the 1.25 miles, and he's going to find 10 Beyer speed figure points based on that. But I think Tiz the Law's got more to offer. I'm usually not a guy that says, they could probably gone faster. Tiz the Law could have gone faster. The 1.25 miles Travers, and I think he's only going to be better. He seems to be training well. And in fact, I hate to bury the lead, I asked about 12 trainers this morning who they thought was going to win the Kentucky Derby, and no one picked anyone but Tiz the Law.
It's so interesting. I've been saying on other shows that the 3 ends could mean we maybe actually eke out a 4 to 5 price on this horse in the race. The 3 ends being names, numbers, and narratives, the kind of things that sometimes drive bizarre betting in the Kentucky Derby. See My Boy Jack and Patch. But when I hear that from you two, that level of confidence, it makes me worry that he's actually just going to be 3 to 5. I mean, heck, he might even be technically a whiff of value at 3 to 5. Matt, I don't know if you've made an odds line for this race. I know it's something you've done frequently in the past, but what's your gut? If you were making an odds line, how many times out of 100? Now, I know you might have to tweak it based on the math and looking at everything, but your gut of where to start with how many times out of 100 Tiz the Law wins the Kentucky Derby?
I didn't price it out entirely, but just my feel, and this might sound over 70 out of 100. Yeah. I mean, I really believe we're probably looking at somewhere in that 2 to 5, 3 to 5 range is realistic. And it's crazy for me to think that, but I think that's also part of what makes the Derby being run this late in the year. I don't want to say that much less of a crapshoot, but we kind of know what these horses are for the most part. And like Jonathon mentioned, maybe Honor AP has really just wanted the 10 furlongs and he's going to just blossom on Saturday afternoon. I don't have to worry about that with Tiz the Law. I know he can do that. And he looks the part. He has every piece. He checks every box when it comes to a quality racehorse. He's got the mind. He has the tactical ability. He has the numbers. He has everything about it. He has the relationship with the rider. There's nothing for me to knock about the horse. And I feel like I'm always one that's going to try to find some sort of an interesting price to go against the chalk. But when the chalk just makes all the sense in the world, there's no sense in fighting it.
I also think that the dream of 4 to 5 could be slipping away even more now looking through Twitter. I heard on the backside actually this morning and looking at Twitter, there seems to be some chatter that maybe King Guillermo won't go. Yeah. They're still trying to make a decision. If he doesn't go, as a buzz horse, as a wise guy horse, no shot we're getting 4 to 5 on Tiz the Law.
Well, let's talk about what you're going to do as an alternative betting-wise, JK. Is this a stone-cold single? I remember even the American Pharoah year, your famous Divisadero pick 6, the American Pharoah year. Even then, you had, I think, American Pharoah for more than the minimum. You had him pressed up nice, but you had some backups. What are you going to do wagering-wise this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the situation that I can just be ice cold to Tiz the Law. If he gets beat, I get beat. None of the other horses I can make cases for are horses that I think other people will be using. So I don't really feel like I'm picking up a lot of value. I don't think I'm getting any value by using Honor AP. I just don't think that he's going to be probably the second used horse. So a lot of people are going to not have the courage or the confidence in Tiz the Law to just ice cold single. They're going to be using others. He's going to be one of them. So I just don't really see any value there. So I'm going to be singled in the 2-day pick 6, which I'm really excited about. I'll be singled in the pick 5, just that day of the race, pick 5. And then also I think there's an opportunity to try to hit some trifectas. I'm going to stay away from the superfecta this year. Unfortunately, I think the meat on that bone has left with the 10-cent supers. I think it's going to be very efficient pool. You're not going to have that big, beautiful payout that sometimes comes on Derby Day. I'm going to stay away from that wager and focus on the trifecta.
I'm going to get involved in the super because I really do like attachment rate as a horse to come run in underneath Tiz the Law. He is a giant long shot to beat him, I would have to say. I will have a tiny little bit of my money that way. That might be my only backup, really, is to do some stuff with attachment rate, second, third, and fourth. And like I said, just an absolute penny on top with him. I feel like we've talked about certain figure makers having the Ellis Park race not that much slower than the Travers, but the real case is just trip handicapping stuff. The very wide journey the last day, being stuck on a rail the day before at Keeneland that maybe wasn't the place you wanted to be. This is a horse who I think is improving and is very interesting as an underneath alternative. Matt Bernier, how about you? What are your thoughts on how you want to bet this year's Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, from multi standpoint, no interest in using anyone else whatsoever. I just think, kind of Jonathan's point, if he loses, I lose, and I'm completely content with that. If I was going to play an exacta or anything, and you guys brought up the superfecta piece, the superfecta, I think it's a terrible, terrible thing what they did, making it a 10-cent base as opposed to the $1. It was what made it the unique sort of potentially life-changing score that it was for all those years. And I had somebody say, well, why don't you just play it for $1? You're missing the point if you're looking at it that way. But I'm not going to go into that anymore. If you're looking at it from sort of an exacta or try standpoint, I guess my opinion, if you're going to go with the 2 to 5 or 3 to 5 chalk on top, I want to fade the Southern California horses simply because they're going to be the logical sort of second, third, fourth choice. Outside of that, I was mildly intrigued with Enforceable underneath and maybe Solo Volante. If you're looking for horses to just kind of, plod along from the back of the pack, I don't think either of them are good enough to win or even threaten to win. But if it turns into more of a stamina test and a war of attrition, and you don't want to use Honor AP, who's going to be chalk, if you have doubts about Authentic or New York Traffic, maybe those two horses are horses that we're just going to see out the distance as opposed to necessarily be as good as some of the other horses.
There you have it, folks. That's our In the Money team's take on this year's Kentucky Derby. And with that, we're going to do a quick look back on Friday. JK mentioned this bet. He's obviously pumped about the $2 2-day pick 6. It starts off in race number 10 on Friday, which goes at 4:15 Eastern, the grade 2 Ali Sheba, a race that I was super boring in my opinion. I really thought it was as simple as McKinsey, and by my standards, I'll probably play them both pretty equally to kick off this pick 6. JK, how are you going to kick things off?
Yeah, those are the only two I really need in here. I mean, obviously Silver Dust has shown some talent, not to the level of McKinsey. We got to see how McKinsey comes out of his Met Mile performance. So obviously he had some issues with the shoe there. He was entered in the 6 furlong race, the Bing Crosby. They decided to scratch there. Too short is what Bob Baffert said. And I just think by my standards and McKinsey make the most sense. I think a lot of people look at Owendale. I think Owendale is better longer against that level right below these. I think that, there's some grade 1 types in here, obviously with McKinsey being a grade 1 winner and by my standards being a very talented horse in his own right. Those are the only two I need to get started here.
Matt, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust McKinsey at all. I'm throwing him out. I don't want any part of him, whether there was an excuse or not for the Met. I thought he was flat there. I thought the Triple Bend was just kind of a dressed up race. Don't think it was very good. And obviously the run in Saudi Arabia was terrible. So to me, he has so much to prove, and at a short price, if he wins, good on you. Doesn't make a difference to me. I've loved by my standards. Maybe I'm starting to acknowledge that he's not quite to the level of Improbable or Tom's d'Etat or even Tiz the Law, but I'm still not entirely convinced that's the case. I want to use him. And if I was going to use anybody else as a complete flyer, and I don't even know if he's going to run in this race. I believe he's cross-entered somewhere else. There's not a ton of speed. Maybe Bodie Express if he's aggressive from the outside. But even having said that, I mean, he is much more of a sort of kind of a flyer. I would be all in with by my standards in the spot.
You make a compelling case. I'm not bold enough to completely stand against McKinsey, but there are questions to be answered. Let's talk about the 11th race, leg B in the 2-day pick six, the grade 1 La Troienne. Matt Bernier will keep it with you.
Look, I don't have any knocks against Monomoy Girl or even Vexatious. It feels like Vexatious has been really one of kind of the neat stories of this entire year, where she's blossomed ever since Jack Sisterson's got a hold of her and put her back going longer on dirt. I don't have any real knock against either of those, other than that they're both going to be super short prices. I think Horologist is better than a lot of people are giving her credit for. And that Molly picture, I get it. Maybe initially you take a look at the figs, maybe you look at it a little bit with some side eye and think it's not that good. And I recognize our Super Freak and Royal Flag. They both came back and they earned buyers of 92 and 93. But I kind of feel like our Super Freak's race is considerably better than that 92 would suggest, considering she was close to such a fast pace. So I think the Molly pitcher stands, the form holds up in a spot like this, and she's going to be a considerably better price than the other two girls in here. Again, not arguing against those two. I think you need to use them, but I'd pick Horologist in here.
Very interesting. I was, the Monomoy Girl case, you almost don't even need to make. It seems like she might be in career form at this point. So good, so talented, should get a good trip. I want to run at least 50% of my money through her as a pressed up A. And then you mentioned the two I'd give as backups, and I would rank them also Horologist over Vexatious, mostly on the idea that I feel like figure-wise you can make a case that Horologist as a 4-year-old in the new barn, maybe that race is more likely to represent a new level of ability than Vexatious, who, while I want to use, I wouldn't be shocked after the race if even before the race about Vexatious, we say things along the lines of, well, last time was the time. But based on that form line to Bisou, to Monomoy Girl's old rival, Midnight Bisou, I want a little twos on my 2-day pick sixes. JK, how are you playing it?
Yeah, I'm gonna use Monomoy Girl here just because she's so talented, and the way that I plan on playing the rest of this sequence, I need to have her in here, but I don't trust her at all. She just too many ins and outs. Was gonna run there, didn't run there. Was supposed to run here, was gonna run there. Gonna skip this, gonna run it. I just don't trust her completely here. Now she might run up the screen and win for fun. She obviously runs well at Churchill Downs, but I'm gonna try to get cute in here. I'm gonna use Horologist on the inside. I'm gonna use Vexatious. And then for a very, very small penny, I'm going to use Risky Mandate. I hated her ride last time. When you have a horse stretching out, going the mile in an 8th, I felt like she should have been out on the front end. She was not on the front end. She was rated in that race. And the fact that Tom Amoss brings her back going the 2 turns, a mile and a 16th, there was something about that performance that he liked. I think she could be a possibility to jump up if the others don't fire. If one of the other 3 runs their race, she can't beat them. But if they don't fire, she'll be a huge price, and I'll try to get her for just a little bit.
Let's talk about this year's Kentucky Oaks, race number 12, 5:45 on Friday, obviously. A mile and an 8th, grade 1 on the dirt. JK, you have been you might have even founded the Gamine bandwagon. Are you running it all through her in this 2-day pick six?
Yeah, I mean, my strong opinion here is I'm tossing Swiss Skydiver. If she wins, I lose. I am going to play Speech and Gamine equally. I think Gamine, if she can handle the mile in the 8th, they're not going to beat her. If she doesn't quite handle it, Speech is going to beat her. So I'm going to use those two. I think those two make the most sense for me. There's probably an opportunity to see. We'll see how the workout reports come back. If Gamine is A-minusing and looking great and all the buzz is going on, and maybe if I can get that winky face text from Bob Baffert that she's doing everything right, maybe I'll press her up a little bit more. But I think Speech is extremely dangerous. I think that run in the Ashland was very, very good. I think she's going to appreciate the distance. She seems to be training extremely well. And you could just tell every time someone asks Michael McCarthy about the race, about Speech, about Swiss Skydiver, about Gamine, he continuously says, I just want them all in the gate. And I think he wants them in the gate because he thinks she's going to run a big race, and he wants it to have all of that special feel to it. He doesn't want any excuses.
I think there's a great form case, very simple form case to be made with Speech, looking at the farthest that Gamine ever run and how close Speech got to her that day and was cutting her down there late. And then the way she's blossomed since. Obviously, Gamine has impressed in her own right. But I like it. For me, I'm basically the same as you, but a little wimpier. So I will Speech, definitely my top pick. Plenty of saving with Gamine, plenty of 5-4 in the exacta, as well as 4s on top, both in picks. I have to back up a little with Swiss Skydiver just because I feel like that's the other thing that could happen here. And I feel like with my opinions elsewhere, it's just not going to cost me that much to try to preserve capital and leave her in the mix as a backup. Matt Bernier, I have a feeling you've got something a little more creative for us when it comes to this year's Kentucky Oaks.
Yeah, look, Gamine, I think she's the most talented horse in the race. I just find the path to this race and to 2 turns again peculiar. I get it. You want to just kind of take your time. You had multiple opportunities to run her 2 turns and you haven't done it. That leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe they've just been sitting on this one all along. Swiss Skydiver, I feel like she continues to somehow get disrespect when all she does is show up and win. The only real loss was to Art Collector, and he would have been the second choice in the Derby this year. I think she makes all the sense in the world. I picked her second. Speech, the same thing. I mean, she continues to move forward, and I feel like she's probably, of the 3, the most appealing, simply because she's going to be the best price, and I think there is potentially another forward move there. I picked her third. I'm sticking with my girl. She's not fast enough. She's not classy enough. I get all of that. I think she works at a perfect trip. I like She Dares the Devil. I've liked her since March. I liked her since even before that run in February, because she made the first move into the teeth of the pace. She got run down by Bonnie South. We know Bonnie South is a quality filly in her own right. She Dares the Devil. I think there's something more than what the figures would suggest, and I get it. That's a slippery slope to go down. But you watch the tape, you hear some of the things from the way she's been training. Yeah, maybe she's a little bit eager early on. She's always been a little bit of a kooky horse, but I think there's more there than what the numbers would suggest. And the good news is, if you're talking about a horse that's going to be 4-5 or 3-1, who is a little light on figs, and you got to try to squint a little bit to see what there is, that's one thing. She's going to be 15-1. I've got a future bet at $1,000,000 on her, so I don't really care what her off odds are. I'm all in on She Dares the Devil. I think she works at a good trip, and she's going to need some things to work out for her. She's going to need the girls to line up in front of her, Gamine to have issues with the distance. Maybe Swiss Skydiver doesn't work out a perfect trip, but She Dares the Devil for me in the Oaks.
I love it, Matt. It's a good creative opinion backed up with very solid reasoning. Godspeed to you and She Dares the Devil in the Oaks, and Godspeed to you two and everybody out there listening. Show's going to continue in a minute, but just thanks, guys. That was particularly stellar work from both of you, and we'll be back in just a minute. Kentucky Derby Saturday. There is a lot of time between races. We need action. We need to entertain ourselves in the hour and 15 between the race before the Derby and the Derby. Stable Duel is a good way to do this, folks. Check it out. This is a new way of playing the horses, which is a blend of traditional horse playing and fantasy sports, and kind of its own deal too. StableDuel.com, you can get a lot more information. But to play, you're going to want to download the Stable Duel app. Check it out. Great way to entertain yourself with you and your friends. Hopefully you're at some nice, safe, socially distanced Kentucky Derby party like the one we're having at Taverna Novo right here in Saratoga. I'll be encouraging everyone to download the Stable Duel app and get started today. Next up on the show to talk about the late pick 5 from Saratoga on Saturday, returning to the In the Money airwaves. He is one of the founding partners of 10 Strike Racing. He's also just a very sharp horse player and somebody I like to talk to as often as possible about all things pertaining to our sport. Clay Sanders, welcome back to the show, and actually welcome for the first time to the RacingPicks.com Players Podcast.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
I know that you have a lot of thoughts about betting strategy and are among the many players who recognizes it's not just how you handicap, it's how you put your bets together. I want to just ask you a basic question about pick 5 betting strategy before we very quickly blow through this late pick 5 at Saratoga on Saturday. What is a common mistake you see in the way folks approach the pick 5?
I think the most common mistake, Pete, is people spread too much and they include too many favorites that they think are just so-so. I think this sequence is a prime example. There's Tacitus, which is a very polarizing horse in this sequence. You have to be comfortable in the pick 5 to not win very often or not hit it very often. So even if you think, like I do, Tacitus might be the most likely winner, I'm very comfortable leaving him off my tickets. And if he wins, I'm okay losing, because you don't hit the pick 5 very often. But when you hit it, you need to hit one that pays and where you get rewarded. And if Tacitus wins and it goes fairly chalky or, logical, you're just not going to get paid. You're not going to get the reward. So you should play a different bet. Or if you really like Tacitus in this sequence, single him. Don't use Tacitus and another horse. You need to have just Tacitus on your ticket if you think he's the winner.
That's the way I was leaning, actually. I love him at 10 furlongs. We'll get there in a minute. But I think that's good general advice, is to really think about the bet, not necessarily just as survive and advance, but taking a little more of a holistic approach in terms of your risk and reward of the specific combinations you're putting together. Is that basically what you're advising?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And are you somebody who will play a more narrow weighting tickets equally kind of ticket? We actually talked about this last week on the show with Tyler Hoffman, where he feels if he has the right opinions in a sequence, he doesn't necessarily need to grade out his bets the way we've discussed with Matt Vagvolgi and or use the ticket maker ABCX philosophy. Where do you fall as far as that goes?
I've come full circle on the ABC method. I understand the logic. I understand wanting to weight your opinion stronger. What I have figured out over my play and playing pick sixes and pick fives over a long period of time is the times you get paid and the times you're really going to be rewarded, you're going to have 2 or 3 C's that are your prize plays to really get the payout. And what would happen is I would have those C's on my ticket. I just couldn't get them all on the same ticket.
Sure.
So you either have to make an A horse be a price horse, which very few people do. They want to put the logicals and just have those long shots at C's. Or I'm more of a caveman guy. I'll probably have multiple caveman tickets, but I've kind of come full circle, and I've been able to hit more big tickets by having spreads and have them equally weighted and getting those 2 C type horses home and getting my big, $50,000, $100,000 scores out of it.
There is a happy medium, I think, there. You're calling them caveman tickets, but if you're playing more than one, they aren't really caveman tickets. But just that idea that maybe I love 2 horses in the sequence and they're in leg B and D. I'll just try to construct tickets sometimes where those 2 win and I'm going to have everything. Like B's, C's, even some horses that I'd have been tempted to X insert. I might even have an all if I have like 2 really strong opinions. So I think being a little malleable in terms of your approach and trying to be creative and not just hit it all with the same cookie cutter, I think that's a key to the pick 5 betting success. Let's dive in, Clay, to the sequence. I could talk about this with you for an hour, and some other time we will, but let's dive into the sequence and give some quick thoughts. It starts off with race number 8. We've got 3 and up New York bred allowance runners going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. I'm sticking with Jimmy Jazz in this spot, Clay. This is a horse I feel like has had really legit trip excuses the last 2 days, and maybe this time we get him a little bit closer to the price he was on July 25th than on August 15th. I'm interested in this horse, what he can do if he gets a clean run through. Not one I'm looking to single, but he is a horse I would consider putting up on the A line. How did you see this one?
So I'm with you on this horse. It's not my top selection, and just a little more how I like to look at the pick 5, and what I think mistake people do is spreading too much in the first leg of the pick 5. If you're spreading the first leg, you don't have an opinion, just play the pick 4 and you can have more leverage going forward. So in this race, I would probably use 1 or 2 horses. I thought Jimmy Jazz, my first go through before I heard about the rain and what's coming on, he was probably one I wasn't going to use, but I will tell you these English channels and giving the ground are a big move up. We saw that last Saturday with Channel Maker. If you go back in his form, his only win was on yielding turf. My only pause on the horse is I don't like going from IRAD to Eric Cancel, but outside of that, I have no knocks on this horse, and I might go too deep in this leg because I think he will be a price Tom Bush doesn't get bet. The other horse I like is Jack the Cat. I think he's the only horse in here that's run back-to-back 100-plus Time Form US speed figures. He's not going to get bet that much. You got Dylan Davis. Ray Handels had a good meet, but he's still not a high-profile trainer. And I think a lot of people are going to go to Mike Maker, the logical horse. Good old boy, can certainly win, but last time might have been the time for him. But I like your horse, and I like Jack the Cat.
I like it. Jack the Cat and Jimmy Jazz to start things off in this pick five. Now you're talking about weather, and we've had plenty of it here the last couple of days, but we are talking about this basically 48 hours out, and it is supposed to be sunny between now and then. So that's just a slight chance of rain, but I just wanted to clarify that for the listeners. It's Saratoga, so you always have to keep your ear to the ground and pay attention to the radar. But
but it's not going to be a highway, so there's going to be some give. As much rain as we've had, the race has been off Wednesday and Thursday. That course has taken quite a bit of rain. Yes. Sometimes this time of the meet, it's been baked for weeks on end. That's not going to be the case on Saturday.
That's a very good point. It'll be more a different kind of ground. It's going to be more like early fall ground than that late summer paved highway ground. Let's talk about race number 9, the first of our graded stakes. It's the Grade 2 Jim Dandy, and I don't think I'm exactly going out on a limb when I say Todd Pletcher holds a strong hand in here. For me, Clay, I thought that Dr. Post was going to get the setup that maybe he lacked last time out. I respect Happy Saver immensely, but I think Dr. Post maybe have this race just run to suit to produce a peak effort for him. I was thinking him more as the A and the Happy Saver more as the B for me. Do you like any of the prices in this spot?
What I was thinking of doing is I think you probably use both Pletchers and you probably get out of this race. I will say I prefer Happy Saver a little more based on where he's going to be sitting on the race. I think both of his wins, he's been sitting in the perfect trip. I don't like that IRAD's on Dr. Post and Lascano's here. Sometimes you can read too much into the jockey karaoke, but I do think that means something here. But I just point out to your viewers that there's been 50 dirt routes at Saratoga this meet, and 38 have been won by horses within 2 lengths of the lead. That's 76%, and Dr. Post is going to be. I think he's going to be further back in that. So they're going to have to knock pretty heavy up front for him to win, unless he just towers over this field on talent, which may be possible. But I just think from where they're sitting, Happy Saver is going to be preferable. I think Mystic Guide might get a look. Maybe he's a little more forward with the blinkers on. They've always thought a lot of this horse. He's impeccably bred. He's been favored in every start. So that horse was a little interesting to me. But I really think you can use the Pletchers and get through this.
You're convincing me off that stat to upgrade Happy Saver to an A for the record. Let's talk about race number 10. It's the Grade 2 Prioress and the return to the races of one of my favorite horses in training. I really love Kimari and have ever since the maiden win, really, and getting to follow her at Ascot and her such a tough loss to Raffle Prize last year. And interestingly, on figures, this one is every bit as good on dirt. I feel like she's going to be close enough and get the right kind of trip to get it done in the Prioress. I do not want to stand alone. Very curious to hear who else you like in this one, but Kimari will be all over my tickets.
So Kimari will not be on my tickets, and you're talking to the biggest Munnings fan on the planet.
I know that to be true.
But look back at her win on the dirt where she beat Frank's Rocket back at Oaklawn. What was the track? It was sloppy. If you've heard Jonathon talk about my love of the betting the Munnings on the slop, This horse loves slop. Has not really run particularly. I guess as a 2-year-old ran fast, but who knows what that was all about. But I just think I'll go against her at a short price. I think that Frank's Rocket could probably be loose here. Full disclosure, I'm good friends with the owner of Frank's Rocket, and we'll be rooting for this horse. I will be using Frank's Rocket. I'll also be using Reagan's Edge. I thought that horse ran very well last time to almost get to Frank's Rocket in the victory ride. I believe that day the inside and speed were good. Frank's Rocket was on the lead. I think the 6 furlongs will suit Frank's Rocket a little bit better, but I just think Reagan's Edge is one of those horses looks like it's an improving 3-year-old. It's drawn outside. I just think it's going to sit the trip. So those are the two I'm using.
Certainly makes sense to me. Just looking at morning lines, the difference between 5-2 Frank's Rocket and 8-1 Reagan's Edge is a reason to include Reagan's Edge in this spot. I wanted to ask you a quick question about number 6, Hello Beautiful. Well, I'm not sure if can take advantage of what I think the good trip she's going to get is, but I know you're a big Brittany Russell fan and really helped put her on my radar, and I've cashed some nice tickets with her, and she's just a trainer I always give an extra look to.
No, she does fantastic work. We actually have a horse we just sent to her where she told me to go run in a stake on Saturday at Laurel that just moved from Brad to Brittany. We think the world of her. I've known her since she was an exercise rider for Brad. I just think this horse, I think you can draw a line through the last time. Broke poorly in that day at Ellis Park. You had to be on the front. Brad's horse, a Monday call, ran off the screen. Coming back, I don't know. She could certainly do it. I think she's a kind of horse with those big figs that she's done it when she's had it all her own way against mediocre competition. I won't like to see her do it on the big stage before I'm going to back her, but have all the faith in the world that Brittany will be bringing her over ready.
Good stuff. Let's talk about race number 11. It's the Grade 1 Woodward. We already had our preview of this conversation. For me, the key to Tacitus is distance. I just feel like he's too slow to win shorter than 1.25 miles. That's my short argument for that. Now, granted, probably would have done the last day in the Suburban, a field that he just overmatched. I'm not sure he isn't almost as an overdog against this field. He's doing what he wants. I like where he's supposed to lay early on pace figures. I want to hear a little bit of your case against, and mostly I want to know where you land.
So I've made a lot of money betting against this horse. I've never bought into the hype, and it's worked out all but, a handful of time, or, his last race. And where was his win before that? I guess was the Wood Memorial. He's always been overbet. He's this horse that always has to have things go right. And as we all know in racing, and that often doesn't happen. I think the distance helped him last time, but I think Belmont with those big sweeping turns, he didn't have any of the trouble. He could stay away from all the ruckus. I just don't like him here. He's going to be 4-5. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's matured. It's third start off the layoff. I get the reasoning that he might run well here, but I'm going to try to beat him with first off Global Campaign, which I think will be the one on the lead, which I talked about earlier that you want to be up front. I think he's a horse that's really talented. I think if you go back and watch his race in the Monmouth Cup, I know he wasn't beating any killers in there, but he was really game when he fought back. And he's curling out an AP mare. He should be able to get the 1.25 miles. The other two I'm going to use Spinoff for Todd, and I'm going to use Prioritize for Jimmy Bond. Both horses won at 1.8 miles at Saratoga this meet. They won over the course. They're going to be prices. And if Tacitus doesn't fire, which I'm hoping, or gets into some trouble, I think it'll be one of those three that can get me home, and probably at a decent price.
All right. Well, we're head to head there, but I think you gave the listeners some really good info, no doubt about it. Let's talk about this 12th race. We've got 40K claimers going 1 1/16 on the turf. Clay, how are we going to get paid?
So I think if you look at these Saratoga pick fives, they throw you one of two races. They'll throw you just these cheap maiden races, or these cheap 2 Life races that are just hard to even figure what to do. They're always contentious, big fields. So I always say to people, either need to single, find one horse, or you need to be very spready, not necessarily the all button, but use pretty liberally most of these horses. And I'm choosing the liberal approach. I'm going to use quite a few of these. I'm going to get rid of a few that I don't like, that may be overbet or have no chance, but I'm going to use quite a few. You want me to just go through the list?
Yeah, run them down.
I'm going to use Our Country of George Weaver. He won the other day. He's had a really slow meet, but he can pop at a price. This horse has a decent enough speed. I like Steve's Bick's Kid Chocolate here. He's getting Rosario. I think that's a big upgrade over Franco, especially on the turf. And he's been right there. Got beat 1.25 lengths and 2 lengths the last 2 tries at this distance, or at this condition. And you're going to get a price because of Gary Siaka. Doubly Blessed, Mike Maker. Mixed messages here. They bought this horse privately, but they're not protecting. I think Maker's been a little cold after a really hot start. I'll probably use defensively, but I'm going to really want to beat that horse. I like this Courageous Contender quite a bit for Linda Dixon. It was 63-1 last time in a tougher race, first time against winners. Only got beat 4 lengths. It was 8th, but only beaten 4 lengths. I think getting more reasonable spot should run better. I'll use Rudy's Implied Volatility. Similar speed figure as Courageous Contender, won't be as good a price, but fits. Potentially may use Talaga Bay. I think that's kind of a longer type horse, with the 7-pound bug. One last time, maybe it was the light bulb moment. I think Life on Top has a big shot, putting the blinkers on for Jimmy Jerkins. Traffic Pattern for Chad. This will be the one that you either single or don't use. I'm going to play against this horse. Did no running last time. They're dumping this horse. Maybe still good enough to win, but I'm going to try to beat that horse. And then lastly, I'm going to use Operative for Dave Donk. I think it just fits on speed figures. He's, had a pretty solid meet. And then I'm going to try to beat the horse that has the best last speed figure, Shooting the Breeze. It's drawn poorly way outside. You're going from Graham Motion and Mike Baker couldn't win the 2 Life. And now we're going to David Canizzo, who's won for his last 33 off the claim, 6% off the layoff, and 2% on turf. Poor posted and those bad stats. I'm going to try to beat that horse.
You've made a good case against the top 3 in the market, and I landed on one that you did give a little bit of a special shout out to, and that's Life on Top, who I felt like should get a pretty good trip in this spot and feels like one who should improve, dropping here significantly after not running all that badly, all things considered. Life on Top, one that I'll key around, but you make a compelling case for some of these long shots who I might be looking to throw in on the backup line. Clay, thank you so much. We are out of time today, but really appreciate your thoughts, not only on this Pick 5 sequence, but the Pick 5 in general, and we'll be sure to have you back soon for a much longer conversation. Really appreciate it.
Good luck to everyone.
Very excited to announce this week, earlier than expected, a new project. It's the In the Money Players Podcast, Whiskey. This is a barrel pick made by me back in February. Boy, seems like a long time ago. At the Albany Distilling Company. What is it? It's a 6-year-old American malt whiskey. It drinks kind of in between a Scotch and a bourbon. We're going to have ways for you to get this soon. They're not for sale, but if you make a charitable donation to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, you're going to be able to get your very own bottle of this as a gift. For that, where can you get more details? Check out our social media. Our Twitter specifically, at In the Money Media, is going to have lots of information about where you can get your bottle. You can also follow us on Facebook. We'd appreciate that. Anyway, we'll also ask you to go ahead and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to all of our various shows in the Money Media family. InTheMoneyPodcast.com will get you to all of those places, really get you everywhere you want to go. You're going to want this whiskey. I'm telling you, it's really good. I'm not just saying that. I had a literal hand in picking it out, and I know a thing or two about whiskey. Stay tuned for more news. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Okay, our last segment on today's show, we head up north to Woodbine. We've talked about all the time between the races on this Churchill card on Saturday. We're going to be looking at other things. We're going to be playing our stable duel, looking at Naira. We're also going to be looking at Woodbine. I feel like we've turned a lot of people on over the course of the last few months to some really good betting opportunities, and a lot of that has to do with the fine work being done not just on these racingpicks.com shows, but also over on InTheMoneyPodcast.com from our next guest. You know him as the business manager here at In the Money Media, but he is also a degenerate horse player. He's Drew Coatney. How are you, Drew?
I'm good. And as always, my mom's not going to be too proud of that one. Good thing she doesn't listen, but good. How are you doing today?
Things are good, man. It's a pedal to the metal. We're gonna dive right in. We don't have a ton of time to get through this, but we will get through it nonetheless. I think it's a fairly straightforward sequence. Starts off with race number 8. We've got $5,000 claimers going 6 on the synthetic. This is a race where I was interested in a horse who I think is just going to get an absolutely perfect trip in number 6, Macho T. This one's coming back very quickly. Raced just 9 days ago, but has that trip angle I'm always going on about being close to the fractions, coded red, on time form US. I think this one should get a nice lead into the race from the Kippy train and possibly take over. Those are the two that really seem the most logical to me among these cheapies. I like it 4-6 or 6-4. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on the 6. I think it's really important to know that the 6 did get in the speed duel. And if you go look, the speed duel was with a 23-1 shot who held on. But that 23-1 shot in that race prior made all the sense in the world. It was coming out of an optional claimer, $75,000 event. Today we're in $5,000. Let's remember that. And I think it's going to just have the clear trip. The other horse I will give for a little bit of creativity was Thanks Again, the 7. I think there is some speed drawn to the inside, so we could see a little bit of duel there and bounce.
Let's move on to our featured race. It is the Grade 3 Vigil, 6 furlongs on the synth, and this is the return to the races of number 7, Pink Lloyd, who I'm hoping you don't like, because then we'll have our head-to-head all sorted out. This tough customer, I'm just such a fan, has won in this scenario before, even when there's not a lot of pace seeming, has enough tactical speed to stay in touch, finishes the races, got the job done just by a neck last time. But sometimes these margins in synthetic races, the class of the horse, the quality of the horse can be more than what the bare margins suggest. Pink Lloyd to the hoop for me. Shine on, you crazy diamond, in race number 9 at Woodbine. What do you think?
I love it. I have written head-to-head old guard versus new. I think there are some upsetters here. And I don't know if Muggsy, the handicapping Labrador, would appreciate June, the not-so-handicapping cat. All right. Anyways, let's get to it, though. For this race, Pink Lloyd, most likely winner, absolutely. But I think we're going to find some value in the horse Roaring 40s. It projects to be the best speed. Remember, Pink Lloyd likes to stalk, and I don't see a ton of speed in here. I think this one could get loose again, like we saw the other time against Pink Lloyd. It has the foundation already established in terms of fitness in that last run, which, again, remember, was off a pretty long layoff from 8+ months. So this 4-year-old, if they can build off that foundation, we may have just a loose leader and just to wire this field. So I'm going the number 9. We'll talk about the head-to-head in a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. Let's move things along to race number 10. We've got 3 and up maidens going 6 furlongs on the synthetic. Where did you land in here, my friend?
Drum Green Bridge, the number 1 on the rail. I have no, maybe I'm saying that wrong. Maybe I'm mixing up some words. How would you say that?
I would say Drum Green Bridge. I mean, are we missing something? I feel I'm going to feel bad when somebody says, "Oh, it's really this." But I think it's Ontario bred. I feel like I can pronounce the name. I'm very curious what the case is, though.
Yeah, right. I don't know, but anyways, we'll listen to Mr. Geller make that call on Saturday as that horse comes across the wire first. It's a speedball type of horse drawing the rail. Gonna have a nice cozy trip. Hopefully builds upon that stamina. My only pause, and I'm going to require at least some decent value here, which 21-1 is going to give us. It showed the speed and fade at 5 furlongs, so how's it going to react to 6? Sorry, how is she going to react to the 6 furlong event today? We'll have to wait and see, but again, I like that it showed good speed. I keep saying that, I'm sorry.
That's all right. The connection forgive you, and she forgives you. You make a compelling case. She is clear on time form US, which is interesting. I like Tis Legal, not the most exciting pick in the world, but this one I felt like did make was attending anyway a hot pace, making a move into a race coded red just days ago, getting onto the synth, but on breeding, I don't imagine it will be any issue. Patrick Husbands and Mark Cassie for me in this spot to get a perfect trip. But I'm going to take a longer look at your number 1 in here as well. Drew, let's move on to the 11th race. We've got 3 and up maiden claimers for $10,000, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. And this is another race where I wish my opinion was a little bit more creative, but that's how I see it. The 11, Scream Diva. This is one of these angles I like so much about stepping onto the new surface and improving mightily. That's what happened with Screen Diva last time on turf, just losing a length. The connections here need no introduction, and I think this one could end up being the best of speed and going on with things. How do you see the nightcap? How are we going to get paid?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. This is somewhat of a spread race. Nothing scares me, which sometimes means there's no strong opinions and need to be spread. So nightcap, I'm going with number 9, Naked Illusion. She's debuted on turf twice. Took a left turn onto some poly to the Tapeta a couple times, and then is going back to the turf today. I think that foundation, those first 2 debuts indicate that she was bred for the turf here today and should take a little bit of a step forward, doing the 5th start for Nathan Squires, the trainer-owner combo there as well. So number 9, Naked Illusion for me to stalk and pounce late down towards the lane.
I could see this one. I definitely think there's a long shot case to be made. I will point out that you can only debut once, though. I will play grammar police on you on that one. But this one definitely has some opportunities to make a little bit of noise here. I did like that run, particularly 2 back, and then did maybe have a little bit of a trip excuse last time, bumping at the start and getting lit up and not really settling. So with a clean journey through, I can see it. Screen Diva for me. Before we get out of here, though, let's talk about our head-to-head race at Woodbine this week. We're going to go back to race number 9. It's the Grade 3 Vigil. For me, the 7, Pink Lloyd, is the one. I just think this is such a tough customer. We've seen this 8-year-old gelding win under these exact circumstances, 25 for 31 lifetime. I think he's going to get the job done, and I'm willing to give you the whole field against him.
The whole field?
The whole field.
Oh, come on. Let's make this
on.
Come on, that doesn't feel like that's just like you get the leftovers here. No, I don't think it's leftovers.
All right,
not so fast.
You can take as many as you want. How about that?
I'll take 2 horses. That's all it's going to take down Pink Lloyd, who just won, as Geller said, the track announcer of Woodbine, a quarter a century's worth of wins, 25 wins. I don't think that today is the 26th on the Saturday here for the win of Pink Lloyd, the heavy hitter. I'm going to take the number 6, as well as the Roaring 40s, number 9, drawn to the outside to upset against Pink Lloyd in our head-to-head.
All right, we'll see what happens. We'll see if I can keep my little streak going here. Drew, thank you so much for your time on this show. For more from Drew, written pick 4 analysis, more thoughts and insights just than we discussed here, both Saturday and Sunday. Check it out at inthemoneypodcast.com. That's going to do it for this Kentucky Derby final answers edition of the RacingPicks.com Players Podcast. Lots of thank yous. We're going to start with the man pushing all the buttons and working overtime this week to get this show up and running. That's producer Craig, DJ Unstable himself, Craig Gorbanoff. Thank you, sir. We'll thank our partners and sponsors at RacingPicks.com. Of course, we've mentioned it 17 times before the show. Get my full folks betting analysis over there. Sign up for the expert picks. Give me your email, and you get lots of good stuff from me and Matt Bernier and Andrew Champagne and others. More exciting things coming down the line from them. Then we will thank our guests, starting with Matt Bernier and Jonathon Kinchen and Clay Sanders and Drew Coatney. But most of all, I want to thank all of you, the listeners and viewers, for making these shows so much fun to do, for interacting with us on Twitter, for answering these little asks we're giving from time to time to help things stay afloat over here. We really appreciate it, and you make the show so much fun to do. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathon Kinchen. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your Kentucky Derby photos.